Hello students, and Mr. Nash here,
Mrs. Fibber Johnson.
and we are here to teach you about how to organize your writing. You've selected this as an area you'd like to improve on, and this is one video that will help you do that. And in this video, we're here to teach you how to write a clear thesis statement that's going to help your reader prepare to follow your argument throughout the rest of your paper. Now, you can think of a thesis statement as like a path that you're giving the reader through your paper, and you want your reader to feel like they're walking on this nice, tranquil path, nice and peaceful, easy to walk on, easy to navigate, and not
The scary, dark, spooky path that has no direction, and as people read and walk down this scary, dark path, they get so scared they turn around and run the other way, and they stop reading your paper. You do not want that to happen.
Very sad situation. So a thesis statement will help your reader feel comfortable as they read the rest of your paper. So Mrs. Fibber Johnson is going to start here by modeling for you what a good thesis statement looks like.
So I decided to pick a topic that we're all pretty familiar with, and it's Christopher Columbus. Is Christopher Columbus a hero or a villain? And before I can even come up with my thesis, I have to go out and do a little research and do some reading and come in with some articles that will tell me a little bit about Christopher Columbus. So I've done reading, I've gathered data, and I've picked three really important ideas that I think show that Christopher Columbus is a villain. And I'm going to put those ideas into my thesis as I create my thesis. So these are my big ideas. First, Christopher Columbus is at fault for reporting to Europe about indigenous Americans and giving the impression that Native Americans were uncivilized, savage people inferior to whites. He's the reason why as Europeans come over to America, they feel they could just take from any Indian living here in North and South and Central America. Second, he effectively practiced genocide through the purposeful spread of highly contagious diseases to wipe out and weaken whole Indian societies or nations. So he purposely gave Indians diseases in order to kill off large populations of Indians and take their land and their natural resources. And finally, he forcibly kidnapped and enslaved Native Americans. So those are the three reasons that I'm going to put into my paper that explain why I think Christopher Columbus is a villain.
It's very important, as Mrs. Fibber Johnson continues here, to make sure you can't write a thesis statement unless you know what you're going to say in your paper. So this isn't really a step for after you've already done some research, you've already developed your claims, and now you're going to start to write. So this is a step for after research. But you can see Mrs. Fibber Johnson here has already done her research on Christopher Columbus, already developed her point of view on this issue.
So now in my next page here, now I'm actually going to write the thesis. And in this paper, we're just showing you the structure of a thesis. We haven't talked about style or how we can make this paragraph more interesting. We're just writing a clear thesis. So I start off with a little bit of an introduction. The story of Christopher Columbus has gone through several changes over the course of history. Native American rights groups have criticized Columbus severely on his behavior and attitudes towards indigenous nations. On the other hand, there was a time when Christopher Columbus was considered for sainthood. While opinions on Christopher Columbus vary, I believe he was a villain because he misrepresented Native Americans, enslaved conquered people, and purposely spread contagious diseases. And you can see the thesis is highlighted in yellow. What I've done was I've given my opinion that I think Christopher Columbus is a villain, and now I've also explained briefly the big reasons why I think he's a villain, and these are the reasons I'm going to continue to support throughout my paper.
So now as a reader of this paper, I can tell clearly that this is an argument. There's two sides of the argument. I can see that in Mrs. VJ's intro, and also I can tell that exactly which way Mrs. VJ feels on this issue. She believes he's a villain, and I already know, I'm already set up for some of the thinking she's going to present to me later in the paper. I know that she's going to talk about misrepresenting Native Americans. She's going to talk about enslaving people, and she's going to talk about the spread of diseases. So a thesis statement is not your whole paper. It's not going to be sentences and sentences long. It's not going to be this giant thing. It's very simply one, maybe two sentences that's just going to explain to the reader exactly what your point of view is and some of your main claims that you'll be making in the paper. So if you look back at the previous slide here, Mrs. VJ had big claims that were quite wordy, and then in her thesis statement, she sort of summarized those claims very quickly in just a couple of words so that it flowed into one sentence. And that's a thesis statement, right, Mrs. Vijay? It's pretty.
That's a thesis statement.
And you'd be surprised at how powerful a clear thesis like this will be, because it really sets the reader up to really understand what's going to happen the rest of the paper.
Now, later on, once you get really good at writing thesis statements, then we're going to start working on style and how can we make this paragraph a little more interesting so that when somebody reads this introduction paragraph, they not only know what the thesis is, but they're enticed to continue reading because it sounds like it's going to be an interesting paper.
All right, now it's time for you guys to practice. So, you see here, let me move this little piece out of the way here. What I want you guys to do is I'm going to give you an argument in these next couple of pieces. What I want you to do is to hit pause in a second, and you're going to pause the video and look at the argument and the claims I have here. And then what you're going to do is you are going to write a thesis statement based on the argument and the claims that I've provided to you. So just take out a blank piece of paper or a Word document, number it 1, 2, 3. There'll be 3 problems. And what I want you to do is practice writing a thesis statement based on this argument and these claims. So here you go. Argument: Abraham Lincoln is the best president in U.S. history. The claims are as follows. So using those claims and using that argument, write a thesis statement that would be in the introduction of this paper. Hit pause now. Okay, so you've paused and you've completed practice problem 1. Now you're going to do the same thing with practice problem 2. Using the argument presented to you here and the claims that you see underneath, you're going to write a thesis statement that the Dallas Cowboys will win the Super Bowl this season. Hit pause now. All right, so you've completed practice problem number 2, the final one. You're going to practice writing a thesis statement that Mockingjay is by far the worst book in the Hunger Games trilogy, using the claims I've provided for you below. Hit pause now. Okay, so if you want credit for watching this video and doing the practice, you need to show Mrs. Vijay or myself your practice problems, and we'll look them over and make sure you're doing them correctly. And now you're well on your way to being better organized in your writing and becoming a better writer because of it.